Hi, my name is Doug Firebaugh, and I'd like to welcome you to this Passion Fire Secrets Series CD, which is part of the targeted training program of Passion Fire International. We designed the targeted training program for one purpose: to target specifically what you need to learn and do it in bite-sized chunks to where you can learn them easily. The content on the CD is fresh, unique, and different. We encourage you to learn each track and integrate it into your business, not only to take your actions to a higher level, but also your thinking to a higher level in your life. We hope that the information will help you build a great business, and also be a blessing in your life. This is Doug Firebaugh, and welcome to this series called the 10 Commandments of the Approach. And basically what this is it's going to give you 10 very strong principles, concepts, and different things that can help you not only create a more powerful approach when you approach people about your business, but also a much more connecting approach. Because many people, when they're approaching people, there's things that they do that, well, let's just say doesn't work very well for them. I believe I found them all, because the first several years I was in this business, I think the first 4.5 years, when I approached people, the largest portion of the time I got negative responses. And I was making all the mistakes that most people do. I wasn't taught that. You know, the approach that I was taught is, well, go out and talk to people. Oh, yeah, well, how do you do that? You'll figure it out. You're a smart guy. Just go out and talk with people, share your story, and, get them to meetings. Well, that's what I did for a while, and it didn't work. I tried to get them to meetings, but I didn't know how to approach people. Well, over the last 20 years, we've kind of put together what you call the 10 Commandments of the Approach, because these are things that are almost laws, if you will, that you need to focus in on and to make sure that you're not breaking them. Now, we all understand what the 10 Commandments are, and, I'm a faith-based person. I'm a Christian, so I believe in the 10 Commandments, but at the same time, you need to believe in the 10 Commandments of the Approach, no matter what faith you are. Because I honestly believe that if you can focus in and create a dialogue with people with these in mind, then your approach is going to be so much stronger. People struggle many times when they approach people. People struggle on the telephone. People struggle in front of people. People struggle even across the kitchen table just talking to people, and suddenly they want to bring up their business. But they struggle because they break so many of these commandments. One of the most important and powerful things that you can do is to create a conversation with people that'll get them comfortable. Now understand this. One of the biggest mistakes made in network marketing when people are approaching them is the fact that what they're saying does not get them comfortable. It makes them anxious. It makes them a little nervous, or maybe even a little bit put off because of how the approach went. Guys, your approach has to be 3 things, and this is so imperative that you get this. Number 1, your approach has to be soft, bottom line. And this is not one of the commandments. This is just something that I want you to understand leading into it. Your approach has to be, number 1, soft. No pressure, just casual conversation, friendly conversation, and approach them in a very soft manner. Number 2, it has to be short. The approach is not a presentation. That's what I used to do. I used to approach people, and then suddenly I was doing a presentation, and I didn't get it for quite some time, obviously. But it's got to be very short, and then it's got to be simple. Because the more simpler your approach and your strategies for the approach, the more duplicatable and the more people will do it, and the more you're going to feel comfortable with it. And one thing I've found, that if an approach in a conversation is short, it's simple, and is very soft, then the response usually is positive. That's what I have found. Many people get negative responses. Many people get negative reactions, and many people, for whatever reason, they get a totally negative conversation from somebody. Don't go there. You don't have to. Just create a conversation with people and make it soft. No pressure, no nothing. It's just about them. Make it short. And that's one of the key things about approaching people, because we've got another CD, How to Approach Anyone, Anywhere, Anytime. And this CD will teach you dozens of ways to open up conversation with people that are short, soft, and simple. Most importantly, continue whatever you do to approach people. Because, guys, you're going to get no's. We know that. You're going to get negative people. We know that. But it doesn't mean that this business is not going to work. Continue to contact people. Continue to approach people. Continue to connect with people. Because if you take these 10 commandments of the approach and from this point forward start utilizing them in how you approach people in your conversation, then not only will the 10 commandments help you, but you will be in command of your business. You will be in command of your future, and you will be in command of where your business is headed. And that's what you want, isn't it? So let's get started. We're going to start on the next track on the first commandment of the approach. The first commandment we're going to go over on the 10 commandments of the approach is this: thou shalt not approach, but open up. Let me repeat that. Thou shalt not approach, but open up. In psychology, one of the worst things that you can do is create red flags in people's minds, if you will. And many times, the intention of approaching somebody about this business, it just absolutely, red flags go up everywhere. Why? They can feel it. Because understand, when you have the intention of approaching somebody about your business or approaching somebody about your product, they can feel your intentions in your presence. And that's why that I've always taught, don't approach people, but your whole focus should be simply to open up. You need to open up 3 things in order to create a very strong approach. Number 1, you need to open up a conversation. It's that simple. Again, we've got products, we've got other CDs that teach you how to do this, but you need to open up a conversation with somebody about something. Now, that's common sense, but usually that something should be the prospect or the person in front of you, because you need to make them the superstar of the conversation. You need to open up a conversation. Number 2 is you need to open up who they are. Because once you start opening up a conversation, you need to open up who they are. Find out who they are. Even if they're warm market, find out what they've been doing lately. Find out where they've been going. How's their family? Find out what interests in the things that have changed. Open up who they are. Because again, when you're approaching somebody, you know, an approach is just not singularly a question, but an approach sometimes can be a 2 or 3 or 4 minute conversation, opening up the conversation, opening up, talking about who they are, what's going on in their life, which is so important. But the third thing you open up is possibilities. One of the things I've always wanted to teach, and I may put a CD together, is the art of possibilities. Because possibility conversation is so exciting. Because it opens up possibilities in a person's mind, heart, and spirit that they never thought possible. When you open up a conversation with people, the main thing that you do is you engage the conversation. And as we teach in another CD, we break the ice. Well, when you start opening up and finding out who they are, then suddenly what happens is they psychologically start moving toward you. Why? Because now they are in the spotlight. You put the spotlight on them, and they appreciate it. And they feel good about talking to you because obviously they're talking about them. But the third thing is opening up possibilities. Now, how do you do that? Well, opening up possibilities is a strategy or tactic that's so simple to do. Because all you're doing is you're opening up the possibility of a future conversation, and you're opening up the possibility of talking to them about your business or product. See, the key thing here is you're not approaching them for anything other than simply to open up the best of what they are and who they are. Imagine there's somebody that you're getting ready to call on the telephone, and you're thinking, man, I would love to recruit them. Man, I'd love to sell them the product. Get that thought out of your mind. What you want to do is you want to ask yourself, what has to happen in this conversation for me to open up the best of who they are and let them actually see it and feel it? Because, see, you're what we call a transformation specialist. And if you've listened to other CDs of ours, you understand that's what we train on. You need to move from network marketer to transformation specialist, and if you do, it'll explode your business. But see, when you look at the telephone and you're wondering, man, I got to call this person, I wonder what I say, wonder what they're going to say. Well, the important thing is not to worry about that. The important thing is to find out in your mind, what can I say to open them up to who they really can be? Because that's the only reason why you'd ever approach somebody, because you don't know whether this business is for them or not. But you can learn in the process of opening up their eyes, their minds, and their hearts to their true potential. And one of the most powerful ways to do that is while you're approaching them, talking to them at the very beginning, say, you know something, Tom, I've always admired this about you. Or you know something, I don't know if anybody's ever told you this, but you've really, really, truly got one of the best communication skill sets I've ever seen. Open them up by pouring into them. Open up by opening their eyes to the true greatness that lies within them. But the key thing here is don't approach them for your reasons, for what you can get out of the conversation. Approach them for what you can pour into them and what value you can bring to the conversation to them. Because if you open up the conversation and you open up literally who they are, and if you open up the possibility of another conversation down the road, then what you're going to find is that approach, that conversation potentially could be worth a lot of money to you if done right. Thou shalt not approach, but open up. Open up their eyes, their mind, their heart, and open up the future in their minds to what truly a friendship with you or a partnership with you could be. Okay, the number 2 commandment of the 10 commandments of the approach is very simple. It's thou shalt ask questions. Well, duh. You know, one of the things that I get tickled about is the fact that many times people seem to want to not ask questions because they want to dominate the conversation. Not only do they want to dominate the conversation of what they want to talk about, but they want to dominate the time, they want to dominate the presence, they want to dominate the environment of whoever they're talking with. But you don't want to do that. Thou shalt ask questions, and a lot of them, when you approach people. Why? Because questions draw people towards you. It's that simple. Questions draw people towards you psychologically, and many times they draw the person into the conversation that you want them to come into. There was really 2 really strong ways to ask questions. One is who, what, when, where, and why. Obviously, that's been around forever. You know, ask people about who they are and what they do for a living, and you know, when do they start doing it, and where do they work, and you know, why do they enjoy it? Ask questions about their questions. That's one of the things I always taught the distributors. I said, look guys, when they answer your questions, ask a question about their answer. It's question, answer, question. QAQ. Question, answer, question. I want to ask a question. What do you do for a living? Well, I've been in insurance for about 14 years. Really? Well, what made you want to get into that? Suddenly, now I'm drawing them into the conversation. Or, well, what do you do for a living? Well, I'm in real estate. Well, really? Well, how long have you been in real estate? About 12 years. What kind of real estate do you market? Well, I market commercial real estate. The kind of real estate that is like public buildings and things? Well, yeah. Well, where in the world did you get an interest in that? That's awesome. See, these are the types of questions that'll work in your favor, the who, what, when, where, and why. See, when you talk to a person about who they are and, you know, what their interests are and where they're from and when they got interested in, you know, doing what they're doing and why that they're doing it, what's their favorite thing about it, guys, what you're going to find is people are going to be drawn into that conversation. They're going to be drawn psychologically towards you. Because when you ask question after question after question, and even questions after their answer, you're going to find that the approaching people in this manner through conversation is the easiest way to talk to them and set yourself up a platform, if you will, a foundation for a future appointment. The other way that I've always taught is, well, you've heard of FORM, F-O-R-M. Well, we taught FLOSS, F-L-O-S-S. You might be thinking, what's that? Floss my teeth? No. F-L-O-S-S is an acronym. F stands for family. The first thing I always wanted to do if I didn't know somebody is, well, do you have a family? If it was a warm market, I would ask, how is your family? Because the key thing here is to get them drawing towards you. The L stands for living. I wanted to know either where they lived or how life was going. So if it was somebody I didn't know, I'd say, well, let me ask you a question. Where do you live? If it was a local residential area, if they said, well, I live right down the road, whereabouts? Because I always answered with a question. And if it was a warm market, I'd say, well, hey, how's life going? How's things up? The key thing here is now you're following a pattern. F stands for family, L stands for live, O stands for occupation. What do you do for a living? Or if it's warm market, hey, how's your job going? Because you want to create that conversation to them as far as to make them comfortable. One of the things I love to ask about occupations is, what in the world made you decide to get into that? That's really interesting. I would also ask, well, what's your favorite part about what you do? What's your favorite part about what you don't do? What is your favorite part as far as the skill set that you have? And here's my question. What is your least favorite part that you do? So your occupation, guys, you can wrap around. So it's FLO. The first S in FLOSS stands for sales and marketing. I always ask, well, have you ever been in sales and marketing before? And if they're in real estate or insurance, I'd simply stated, well, I see that you are in sales and marketing. That's good. And if they really said, well, I'm in art, or I'm a teacher, I'm this or I'm that, I'd ask them, have you ever been in sales and marketing before? I simply wanted to know if they had that experience. And finally, the last S is C. Where do you see yourself going this year? What do you see happening in your life? Do you see great things, or do you see the same thing that happened last year? Because again, what you want to do is you want to draw the person towards you. So thou shalt ask questions. Who, what, when, where, and why, and FLOSS. Family, live, occupation, sales and marketing, and where do you see yourself this year? What do you see happening with your life? If you floss people like that and ask many questions, you'll find them very easily starting to move psychologically towards you. All right, the third commandment is very simple. Thou shalt make them a superstar. Thou shalt make the prospect a superstar of your conversation. If you've listened to any other CD that we've done as far as about the approach, that's one of the main themes as far as what we train on. You've got to make the prospect and the person in front of you literally the superstar of the conversation. Now you may be thinking, well, what do you mean superstar? Well, what is a superstar treatment? What is superstar treatment? Well, superstar treatment is paying attention totally, universally, focused solely, absolutely, unabashedly, undeniably on that person. It's that simple. They are the superstar. That has nothing to do with anything else in life except them. And that's the superstar treatment. How would you treat a superstar if you saw a major Hollywood figure or I don't know, maybe a pop star or something? Well, the first thing you'd want to do is probably get their autograph and then ask questions. Well, in order to make a person a superstar, then you've got to make it all about them. And understand this little tidbit here, this little nugget I'm getting ready to tell you about. The power in network marketing is not in front of the spotlight, it's behind it. Because who controls the spotlight controls the absolute power of this business. Because people crave attention. People crave recognition, and people crave in their life the ability to talk about themselves. How come? Because the majority of time at work and with other people, they don't get that opportunity. You need to become a rabid, radical, revolutionary audience of one. Let me repeat that. You need to become a rabid, revolutionary, radical, totally 100% entrenched in the conversation audience of one. You need to be, at that particular moment, totally focused on them. Because when you approach somebody and you want to set the platform, if you will, the foundation possibly for a future conversation about your business, then you want to make them feel like a superstar. And because of the treatment of how a superstar would be, if you give them that treatment as well, then they would absolutely be psychologically moving towards you. There's three things most people do with superstars. Number one, they ask for an autograph. Well, you don't want to do that with them, obviously, but you might want to ask for a card, or you might want to just ask a question about what they do. The second thing that you do with superstars and pop stars and movie stars is once you got your autograph, you pay attention to them. You look at them. You say, wow, I can't believe I'm meeting you. This is awesome. And you start asking questions. And the third thing is you literally say, I'm so thankful for your time. Listen, I mean, it's been so awesome to me. I can't believe I met you. That is the same type of superstar treatment that they deserve. Because when you approach people, you need to, what you call mentally ask for their autograph. Otherwise, honor them. Because that's all asking for an autograph is you want a token of this conversation to take back with you. You want proof that it happened. Well, get a business card or get a contact information or something that you can take back with them. Take back with you. The other thing is that when you are with a superstar, you literally honor them by asking them questions, and you always compliment superstars. I can't believe your music is awesome, or I can't believe that movie you were in was unbelievable. Well, it's the same thing. When you approach somebody, make what they do, make how they are absolutely superstar status. And obviously the third thing is thanking the superstar for taking time to meet you. Well, it's the same thing. I can't remember, to be honest, I can't remember when I've enjoyed a conversation so much. That is superstar phraseology, if you will. I can't remember when I enjoyed a conversation with somebody. I've truly enjoyed meeting you. That is treating them like a superstar. Make it all about them, guys. Understand, you want to stay behind the spotlight in the conversation. You want to create a superstar environment for them, put them on stage, and let them do what they do best, which is talk about themselves. And then you need to become a rabid, radical, autograph hound seeking audience of one. Because the moment that you elevate them to superstar status in a conversation, then what's going to happen is they're going to be starting to treat you and anything you say about your business later on or about your product later on, they're going to treat that as a superstar opportunity. All right, on this track, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the fourth commandment of the approach. The fourth commandment is this: thou shalt listen with the heart. Thou shalt listen with the heart. If you take a look at the word heart, H-E-A-R-T, right in the middle of the word heart is the word ear. And you may not be aware of it, but your heart has an ear that literally can hear things that words could never say. And that's what this commandment is all about. Because if you're asking questions and treating the people like a literal superstar, you've got to listen with the heart, though, because many times the heart will hear what isn't said. Many times the heart will hear things that the words, let's just say maybe fumble around. When I ask people like, how things are going? Well, they're going okay. Well, what my ears are saying is, things must be okay. What my heart is hearing is things may not be as good as possibly they're letting me on. Listening with the heart is emotional listening. Listening with the ears many times is logical listening. You want to listen emotionally. Because understand this. Remember if you've ever listened to a CD on communication that I've been blessed to do, there's a golden law of communication, and it is this: first people feel, then they hear. First people feel, then they hear. Well, that's how you listen too. And when you start talking with somebody, one of the first questions I ask myself during the course of a conversation, it's become habit now, is what am I feeling? And immediately, it's within seconds. It's either excitement, or it's either joy, or it's curiosity, or it's anger, or sadness, whatever it is. I want to know what I'm dealing with in this conversation, because your instincts will tell you up front that either this person is a little angry or this person is a little sad. But you want to listen with an emotional hearing that you can then plug into where they are. Because one of the most powerful ways to talk with people and communicate them during the approach is to understand where they are and start there in the conversation. That's why if you listen with the heart, you'll always know where they are. Let me give you an example. The heart will always hear pain where the words will try to disguise it. Did you get that? The heart will always hear and feel the pain in the voice when the words are doing their best to hide it. Because many times people are struggling financially, but they don't want you to know. Many times people are struggling in relationships, they're struggling at their job, they're struggling in life, and they don't want you to know. So when you approach somebody and you're talking with them just for a minute or two, understand this. Your job is to create some format of emotional listening so that you can pour into them. And that's what it's all about. Listening with the heart so that you know at least to give them a right word, a good word, an encouraging word. But also, if you're talking with somebody about your business or their business, what they do for a business, and you're hearing a little bit of anger, or you're hearing a little bit of dissatisfaction, or you're hearing a little bit of maybe, I got to get out of this. You know, the heart can hear it quicker than the words could ever say it. Because the heart needs to listen for three things during the course of a conversation. Number one, dissatisfaction. You need to learn to listen to how somebody says something and what words they use. Because if you're listening with the heart, you'll hear the dissatisfaction in a person's voice when they talk about what they do. And there's three words that they'll say that is a huge red flag. It's a job. Those three words right there show instant dissatisfaction. It's a job. Now understand this. There's nothing wrong with having a job, but maybe they can do better. Maybe they can start a part-time business and get away from that job and go full-time eventually. So number one, you listen with the heart, dissatisfaction. Number two, anger. You listen for somebody to be angry about where they work because maybe they got passed over a promotion, or maybe their boss is on their rear end, or maybe they just don't enjoy what they do and they're mad that they're there. Because if you listen with the heart and you hear this, then you can pursue that conversation with them simply by saying, well, tell me more about it. The key thing here is listening. So number one is listen for dissatisfaction. Number two, listens for anger. And number three, listen for what I call hopelessness. You know, many times people start talking about their job and suddenly it's just like they talk almost like they're hopeless. Well, you know, I've been there for 10 years and, you know, it's a job. It's not, I'll probably be there for another 20 years. Who knows? That is hopelessness. They don't have hope about going anywhere in their life or going anywhere in the company. So if you listen with the heart and feel the emotion behind the words that they're telling you, then you'll get a whole different message. So listen with the ear of the heart. What are their emotions saying? Listen for dissatisfaction, listen for anger, and then listen for hopelessness. Because if you find one of those three, then you have yourself a real prospect for your business. All right, on this next commandment, what we're going to cover is one of my favorite things to talk about is, I love this. Thou shalt pour into them. Thou shalt pour into them. What does that mean? Well, let's imagine a glass, an empty glass, and you've got a pitcher of water, and you start pouring into that glass. What is happening? Well, a substance from this particular pitcher is being poured into and filling up the glass because that is what the glass was made for, to hold something. Well, see, that is the reason that you do that, because the glass's functionality, if you will, is to hold some kind of liquid. And the pitcher, if you will, is made to pour something into something. It's a transfer of water from one element to another, from one vehicle to another. It's to capture the water into a glass that was made for that and to pour it into the glass in a pitcher that was made to do that. Well, it's the same thing. In a conversation, when you're talking with a prospect, there's two functionalities here. What your goal is, and you were made to do in network marketing, is to pour the substance of hope, possibilities, edification, and all the things that go with it into a person. Why? Because that's what transformation specialists do. They transform lives through the pouring in. You are the pitcher. You were made to pour into people, and that is your function. And on the approach, for the first couple of minutes you may be talking with somebody just to get to know them, you want to pour into them in a way that will then fill them up and make them glad they talk with you. Because just as the water's pouring into the glass, your job is to be the pitcher, to pour into that person. Their job is to be the glass and to capture what you have said to them, all of the emotion and the encouraging words and all the other things, and then hold it inside their spirit. That is transfer of one substance that you're pouring out into their spirit, into their heart, into their ears. Thou shalt pour into them, just like water. Now, why would you want to do that to begin with? I thought that you wanted to recruit somebody. I thought that you wanted to sell somebody some product. It was very simple. It's easier to recruit somebody, it's easier to retail the product down the road when you've poured into them and they're full of the good things inside of you than if they're empty and they have not been touched by who you are. Did you get that? You need to touch them from all the good things inside of you and pour them into them so that they have been touched and started the transformation process from who you are. There are basically 5 things that you need to do. Number 1, you need to encourage people. You need to pour encouragement into people and just absolutely encourage them in anything that they do, say, or think. I always like to ask a person, what do you do for a living? Or, tell me about yourself. And I encourage them saying, you know something? One of the greatest things you just told me is the fact that where you work, you really truly enjoy. I encourage you on that because I know that with your personality, you're going to go far in that firm. The second thing is edify. Whatever a person tells me that they've done or accomplished or are doing, I always edify it. I make it sound like it's the greatest thing on earth. If Mary's telling me that, she's working on a project for the school board, Mary, that's awesome. You are having a hand in molding souls here. Tell me more about what you're doing. I think that's awesome. Edify and encourage. The third is empower. To empower somebody not only is to pour into them, but also to create a conversation that will make them feel powerful. And you do that simply by not only encouraging and edifying them, but letting them know, something, I'm really impressed with who you are. Or I'm really impressed with what you just said. Or something, I'm really impressed with what you just told me. Empower them so that they can feel powerful. The fourth is enhance. Anything that they say, enhance it. What I mean by that is get emotional about it or focus in and enhance it with questions. Well, tell me more about that. What did you mean by this? Help me understand this. This is so interesting. Enhance it with questions or enhance it with emotions. And if you're going to enhance it with emotions, if somebody's just telling you what they do for a living, wow, that's awesome. I've often wondered what it would be like to do something like that. And then finally, enlarge. Enlarge the conversation by enlarging who they are. How do you do that? If somebody tells you they just got a promotion, well, you know something, Tom? You're going to get another promotion pretty soon with that personality. Or enlarge maybe they're telling you about something, a project they're working on. You know something, after that project's done, you're going to have a much larger project because they're going to see you did such incredible work. These are the types of things that you want to soak people with. Thou shalt pour into them. Because the more that you pour into a person, the more that you take the good substance, the good encouragement, the edification, the empowerment, the enhancement, and the enlargement, and pour into your prospect during a conversation, then what you're doing is you're creating a platform, a foundation for a future conversation about your business as well as your product. Everybody likes to be filled up. Fill them up with the good stuff. All right, on this particular track, we're going to go over the 6th commandment of the approach. And this one's a mighty important one. Thou shalt not dominate. Thou shalt not dominate the conversation. Thou shalt not dominate the person. thou shalt not dominate the environment, and thou shalt not dominate their time. One of the hardest things not to do is to curb your excitement about what you're doing. To be perfectly blunt, it's tough. Hey, I get excited, sometimes I have to pull back. Sometimes I have to almost bite my tongue because I don't want to dominate the conversation. Many times, I'm sure you do too, I feel like I'm having to apologize because I'm sorry I'm dominating the conversation. Thou shalt not dominate is one of the most important commandments, because what a person needs is not domination, but what they really are truly looking for is activation. Let me repeat that. They're not looking for domination, they're looking for activation. They're looking for inspiration, they're looking for motivation, but they're not looking to be dominated. See, many times, and again, this is typical network marketer here, a person will talk with an individual and get to know them. Let's say somebody that you don't really know, and they'll dominate the conversation about themselves. They'll talk about where they live, the family, what they do for a living. Oh, let me tell you about my part-time business, blah, blah, blah. Well, that has nothing to do with them, because the prospect, even though they're listening, you're dominating their time, you're dominating the environment, and you're dominating the conversation. Understand this. Every conversation from this point forward, 80% of the time should be spent listening to what they're saying. 80%, 80, should be spent listening. And the only way that you can listen is to ask questions. Because again, this could almost be turned around. Thou shalt not dominate with conversation, thou shalt dominate with questions. You get that? Thou shalt not dominate with your conversation, thou shalt dominate with total questions about the prospect. Now let's talk about physical domination. You may be taller than somebody. One of the things I learned is, if in any way possible, if I'm standing over a person, if they're taller than me, I always found an excuse to either tie my shoe or to get down on one knee and to brush it off, or even drop something and pick it up. Why? Because I wanted to look up at them, because I'm 6'2", I guess. I wanted to look up at them while I was down on my knees picking up a pen or brushing off my shoe or tying my shoe or something like that, because I wanted them to understand my intention was not to dominate them. Many times that if I'm standing with somebody, I'll sit down just because I want to look up at them. I want to look up and listen and say, man, that is so awesome. Physical presence sometimes can be dominating, especially if you're a tall person or a big person. That's why that you've got to be careful, not only in conversation, not only in totally focusing in on what you want to talk about, because again, you can dominate the conversation by dominating the topic. Let them pick the topic and let them dominate the topic. Let them pick the place, if you will. Let's say that you're standing in a grocery store line, and let's say that you're taller than this person. One of the things I used to do, again, because I was so sensitive to it, is if a person is, a foot smaller than me, I will lean over on my cart so that I can look at them in the eye. I call it eye-to-eye communication. You need to practice that. Because if you're taller than somebody, you need to get down on their eye level some way and look straight in their eyes. Not looking down into their eyes, looking straight into their eyes. Eye-to-eye communication is non-dominant communication. Otherwise, you're on the same level as they are. And the more that you can practice approaching people being on their level of eye level, then what you're going to find is they're going to be more, let's just say open, if you will, and more connected to what you have to say. The last thing you want to do is dominate the conversation, dominate their time, dominate the topic, and dominate the presence and environment. Spend 80% of your time listening to them, complimenting them, edifying them, encouraging them, empowering them. Sound familiar from last track? That is giving them an opportunity to dominate the conversation with you, because you are now opening them up, learning who they are, and showing them you care about them as a person. And that's the dominant factor in any conversation. You want them to let them know you care more about them as a person than anything that they potentially could bring to any business that you would have. Thou shalt not dominate. All right, so far on the 10 commandments of the approach, we've gone through number 1, thou shalt not approach but open up. Number 2, thou shalt ask questions. Number 3, thou shalt make them a superstar. Amen. Number 4, thou shalt listen with the heart. Number 5, thou shalt pour into them. Number 6, thou shalt not dominate. Commandment number 7 is simple. It's thou shalt have something for them, not want something from them. Did you get that? Thou shalt have something for them, not want something from them. You know, guys, this is a very important commandment on approaching people, because understand something. People can feel your intentions in the approach. That's one of the most important lessons that I had to learn the hard way. People can feel your intentions, because when I first was in this business, my whole goal was to get the money. That's what I was taught to do. They said, whatever you do, Doug, get the money. Well, that was my whole intention. That was my focus. And what it was, every time that I approached somebody, I wanted something from them. It was called their wallet, their pocketbook, their checkbook. Why? Because that's what I was trained to do, get the money. Well, I didn't do so well, to be perfectly blunt. For the first 4.5 years, I didn't do very well at all. Why? Because people saw me coming. People smelled the fact that I wanted something from them. I wanted either their money, I wanted their time, or I wanted them to try the product, or I wanted referrals. I wanted something from them. And to be perfectly blunt, if I was them, I probably would have ran the other way as well. But one day the light went on. Click is one of those epiphany moments that suddenly everything converges and is like, wow, why didn't I see this before? Suddenly I knew that I didn't want anything from them anymore. I had something for them. Let me explain how that works. My little girl was having a birthday party, and she was, I'm going to say 7 years old, 6 years old, and it was a birthday party that was wonderful. We were there, and we were having fun and everything, and I had my present for her, so I sat her down in front of everybody, gave her the present from Daddy, and her eyes literally lit up. And the glow on her face was amazing. And she started screaming with delight, going, oh, Daddy, this is awesome. Oh, Daddy, this is awesome. Well, it made me feel like $1 million. It made her feel like $1 million. Well, driving home, I was like, man, that was such an incredible moment. I took pictures. Everybody was in the family was just going nuts because she was just so excited about the present. And suddenly it dawned on me, what if that same type of emotion could be brought into network marketing? What if that same type of not only emotion but expectation? And then I realized that the reason why that I was not having much success is because I wanted something from the prospect. And when I approached them, they felt it in my words, they felt it in my presence, they heard it in my tone of voice. I totally reversed it. I no longer wanted something from them. Now I started approaching everybody. I have something for you, a present. It's called the gift of success. And when I switched this around and started approaching people and physically looking at the phone saying, I've got something for this next prospect, or talking to somebody, looking in their eyes and thinking, I have got the greatest gift of all, the greatest gift of success to hand you. That's what they were feeling then. They knew that I didn't want anything from them. I kind of walked away from that particular mindset. Now I had something for them. I had the gift of change, the gift of success, the gift of lifestyle. I had the gift of freedom, the gift of time, the gift of the type of dream life that people dream of. And when you start approaching people, not only from the standpoint of I have something for you, but they're going to be so open to that because it's so unusual. Most people want something from other people. Let me repeat that. Most people want something from other people. It's human nature. Why don't you walk away from the most people crowd, and when you approach people, be one of the least people, be one of the people that shocks people, and start approaching them as if you had a gift for them. It was their birthday, and you have the gift of success, the gift of change, the gift of empowerment. You have the gift of a dream lifestyle for them, and you simply want to deposit that into their life at some point down the road. If you do that, you'll find that people, when you're approaching them, will psychologically be drawn so much towards you that it almost becomes too easy. All right, on this next commandment, the 10 commandments of the approach, this one is one that, well, I'm a victim of, to be perfectly blunt, and it has all to do with the nature of your approach. And it's this. This is the 10 commandments of the approach, and this is commandment number 8. It's very simple. Thou shalt not ambush nor attack. You heard me correctly. Thou shalt not ambush nor attack. Because one of the worst things you can do in network marketing, and it's given network marketing to some degree not such a good name, is people approach people for the wrong reasons. They try to trick them into coming either over to their house or coming to a meeting or something, thinking they're coming for one thing, and then it's a bait and switch. They totally switch the intentions, and then they start pitching them on the quote-unquote the deal. Or worse yet, they start talking to a person about a conversation, then suddenly they go into attack mode. And what I mean by that is this, just like a machine gun, they start rattling off about, I've got the perfect thing for you. I want you to go to a meeting with me. I want you to get on a conference call. It's the perfect thing for you. You'd be perfect at this. Let me tell you about my. Let me tell you about me. Let me tell you about everything in my life that's going on. Let me tell you why that this company has to be a part. You and I could work it together. You get the idea of what I was saying. People attack people in conversation and don't give them a chance to talk or even respond because they're so focused on getting the person into the deal, quote unquote. Well, first and foremost, ambushing and attacking people, I think, is unethical. And the reason why is very simple, because it has a lack of integrity. Remember I told you on this front part of this track that I'm a victim of this? Let me explain what happened. I had a good friend that they were neighbors, and I was mowing the lawn one day, and the neighbor kind of pitched his head and said, hey, come over here for a second. So I stopped my lawnmower, I went over there and said, what's up? And he says, hey, my wife and I are having a little dinner tonight, and we got some extra steaks. Love to have you guys over. Would you like to come? Well, I said, well, sure. What time? He said, oh, I don't know, 6:30. Is that good? Well, that'd be perfect. So I went back and started mowing my lawn. Well, I went back and got to, the family together, and we went over there. We cooking out steaks and having a good time, and I was helping him cook the steaks, and they were getting the potatoes ready and the bread and all the things, and the music was playing, and it was just, it was the perfect quote-unquote setup. Well, as we sat down and we started eating, I noticed I just felt something peculiar, and I couldn't put my finger on it. But I just felt like, something's not quite right here. And the reason why is because they were acting a little different. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it was like, they're being a little bit too friendly. They're being a little bit too talkative, and they're being a little bit too. And I didn't say anything. I just ate the steak and, listened and had a good time. Well, about 3/4 of the way finished, and we were still there, my buddy says, hey, something? I want to show you something. And he said, do you have a second? I said, well, sure. He says, new project I'm working on. He brings out this whiteboard and starts drawing circles. And I immediately knew what was coming and what was happening. We had been ambushed. We had been totally deceived into coming over to a house, and now they were doing the deal. He was drawing circles, and the woman was up next to him explaining what the circles meant in between his explanations. They were going back and forth like ping pong balls, and my head was hurting from just listening to so much talking. I was totally not happy. Why? Because if they wanted to talk to me about it, why didn't they say so? Why did they have to trick us? Why did they have to deceive us? Why did they have to create a bait and switch? Do not approach people like that, guys. Under any circumstances, do not approach people like that. It's better just to forget it and walk away than ambush or attack somebody in a manner that's not of integrity. There's so many different other ways to approach people. Handing them a CD. How about that? Just a very simple, short, here, I want you to listen to this. You have a CD in your car. It's a whole lot better than going into bait and switch mode, ambushing people over coffee, ambushing people over lunch, ambushing people thinking they're coming to a success seminar and suddenly they're being pitched on the next deal. Don't approach people like that. It'll only come back to haunt you, but at the same time, in the long run, it'll destroy your self-image in this business. You are not a con artist. No, you're not. You are a professional network marketer who will approach people professionally and with total integrity. All right, the next commandment of the 10 commandments of the approach, this is commandment number 9. It's thou shalt not convince, but convey. Thou shalt not convince, but convey. What does that mean? Well, it's pretty simple. You are not in the convincing business. Many times a network marketer, when they approach somebody, they convince the person to listen to them. They convince the person to give them another appointment. They convince the person of something that they want and something that they're trying to get out of them. Guy, your goal here is not to convince anybody of anything. You don't have to convince them of what a nice person you are. Or you don't have to convince them of how successful you are. You don't have to convince them of anything. What you want to do, your goal, your message, is to convey the message, not convince. What is the first word in convince? It's con. And when you try to convince somebody of something that you know that's really not true, you're conning you as well as them. Your goal is not to convince. Your goal is to convey a message with passion, convey a message of hope, convey a message of freedom, and convey a message of possibility to the individual that you're talking with. Now understand this. When you approach somebody, you don't immediately start talking about your business. You don't immediately approach them about, hey, I got something I want to talk to you about. What you want to do is you want to convey a message not only of hope and possibilities down the road, but you want to convey a message of friendliness. You don't have to convince them that you're a nice guy or a nice girl and try to convince them that you're a friendly person. Convey a message of friendliness by being friendly when you approach them. Convey a message of openness by being open to talking to them. Convey a message of power by giving them the power. Let them dominate. You want to convey a message of success. And most successful people that I know, there are some exceptions obviously, but most hugely successful people that I know always convey the same message to people. I'm interested in you, tell me about you. I'm interested in you, tell me about you. That's the message that you should convey to everyone. Not to convince them how successful you are or how successful you're going to be or why they need to talk to you or why that they should spend time with you. Your goal is to convey a message of hope and possibilities and interest. Because if you do that, honestly, you're going to find the person much more interested in what you have to offer and what you do. Now, one of the worst things you can do when you're talking and approaching somebody, maybe at a Chamber of Commerce dinner or maybe just at a bank line or something, is try to convince the person to let you call them. You don't want to do that. And the reason why is because that's one of the biggest red flags of all. There's just a very simple question that you need to ask people. 2 words. Got a card? And if they don't have a card, then say, do you have a contact number? And the reason why you do that is you want to convey the message, you know, I've really enjoyed talking with you, and hey, I'd like to share a cup of coffee again with you sometime. I really enjoyed this. Convey a message of appreciation. Convey a message of gratitude for their time. Convey a message of really enjoying their conversation. But don't convince them of anything, because the moment you go into convincing mode, red flags are going to go up like crazy. They're going to feel it. They're going to know you're up to something. They're going to know that you want something, and they're going to shut down. 5 things you need to convey, either 1 of 5, however you want to do it. Convey a message of interest in the prospect. Absolutely. When you approach them, be interested in who they are. Number 2 is convey a message of hope. What I mean by that is give them hope that their future can be whatever they want it to be. Number 3, convey a message of possibilities. Let a person know in your conversation, when you approach them, that the possibilities that they have because of their personality or because of the communication skills are amazing. Number 4, convey a message of openness. Be open to who they are and be open to learning about them. And finally, number 5, convey a message of trust. You want to make sure that you come across as somebody they can trust. And the easiest way to do that is to spend 100% of your time finding out about them. Because again, that is the key to this business, is conveying a message of interest in the prospect. One of the earlier commandments was make them the superstar of your conversation. You convey massive interest in them and they will automatically become that. Thou shalt not convince, but convey. Okay, on this last track, what we're going to do on the 10 commandments of the approach, we're going to go over commandment number 10. But I tell you what, we've gone over 9 others on this particular training CD. Like number 1, thou shalt not approach but open up. Number 2, thou shalt ask questions. Number 3, thou shalt make them a superstar of the conversation. Number 4, thou shalt listen with the heart. Number 5, thou shalt pour into them. Number 6, thou shalt not dominate. Number 7, thou shalt have something for them, not want something from them. Number 8, thou shalt not ambush nor attack. Number 9, thou shalt not convince, but convey. Number 10 is this, thou shalt make them feel like $1 million. Did you get that? Thou shalt make them feel like $1 million. Your whole goal when you approach somebody is to make them feel good about who they are. Make them feel good about talking to you and make them feel better about themselves than they ever had. Because every conversation, if you're going to be a transformation specialist, understand this. Every conversation you have with somebody, every time you approach somebody, it should be an enlargement tool. Because what you want to do is you want to enlarge their perceived value about themselves. Make them feel like $1 million. Because if you use every conversation as an enlargement tool and make the value of that person, every conversation go up, they will follow you to the moon. Thou shalt make them feel like $1 million. We had a golden rule in not only in communication in our organization, but also leadership. It was simply this. Make the person feel better about themselves when they're walking away than they did before they walked up. Make the person feel better about themselves as they're walking away than before they did when they walked up. Or put it in telephone context. Make the person feel better about themselves when they're hanging up than they did before you called. Did you get that? Make the person feel better about themselves as they're hanging up than they did before they called. The key thing here is if you make a person feel like $1 million, you're going to impact that person. And if you approach somebody, not necessarily just to try to recruit them or retail from them a product or retail to them a product, but you honestly are approaching them to transform their life, then you'll never have to recruit again. How does that work? Because if you start pouring into a person and making them feel just like $1 million with the talent, with their personality, with their life, with every part about them, then you are starting to transform their perception of who they are. You're also starting to transform their perception of what truly they can do. And if you do that, if you encourage them, pour into them, and when you approach people strictly to start the transformation process, they will become addicted to it. Not only will they become addicted to it, but they'll want more of it. Because the one thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that that prospect knows that there's greatness inside of them. Every conversation you have about your business, every prospect you approach about your business should be an enlargement tool. It should also be a greatness tool. It should be a tool that you use to pour in greatness into that person. Now, I know. There's some people say, oh, Doug, that's hairy-fairy stuff. This is business. You get down to business. You talk to them about the product. You talk to them about the business. You sift and sort. It's either for them or it's not. That is a lower realm of working network marketing. It's a lower level of working network marketing. You want to be at a higher level of working this business so that you can get higher results. You want to be above the herd. You want to be above the crowd. You want to work this business on the level that you deserve. So why don't you start approaching people on the level that they deserve? Did you get that? Approach the person on the true level that they deserve, a professional level, but more importantly, a transformation level. Because if somebody tells you, oh, don't listen to him, it's just, you go out, you talk to people, you sift and sort, and eventually the cream rises to the top. That is transaction language. All they're worried about is transaction. Well, understand this. If you change your focus from transaction to transformation, what's going to happen is simple. Your whole focus will change, but your whole paycheck will change. Because a transaction is nothing more than a fruit of a transformation conversation. Guys, make them feel like $1 million. My mentor in this business, who's done $6 billion with a B, said if you want $1 million business, make people feel like $1 million. Well, if you want $1 million approach, make people feel like $1 million during the approach. So this has been the 10 commandments of the approach. And what an honor it is to be able to pour into you a little bit and to share some time with you. And I really, truly am humbled that you would take the time to open up your heart and mind to learn a little bit that's worked for us. All I can tell you is go out and approach people, take one commandment at a time, and learn it and integrate it into your business. Because the more commandments that you can master and integrate and connect with, the more powerful the approach. And I would encourage you to get the CD if you haven't, How to Approach Anyone, Anywhere, Anytime, because that's going to give you dozens of ways of opening up conversations and approaching people about this business. This is Doug Firebaugh. You're listening to a Passion Fire single of the single series, The 10 Commandments of the Approach. I want to thank you for spending time with me and allowing me to do that. And God bless you.
Hey all you Dr. Wallach supporters and longevity fans out there. Most of you at some point will have come up against this Nutra-Smart bashing of Dr. Wallach. There are a few articles that are published specifically to tarnish Dr. Wallach and his message. And I have actually written this whole book. This was a few years ago. I wrote a full-length book in rebuttal to these vicious attacks on Dr. Wallach. I believe every objection that you are going to encounter in the field is addressed in this book. It's absolutely a great resource for you to have as a distributor. And if you do ever have anybody coming up to you saying, I heard what you said about Dr. Wallach and I was going to look into some of his vitamins, but I came up against this article on the internet, Nutra-Smart article is probably the one they read. So it's a great deal, guys. I put it up very cheap. It's just another tool in our toolbox. And the Amazon link is in the description of this video. Make sure to check out our food YouTube channel called Notus Foods. This is 100% Dr. Wallach approved. And the chef that is preparing the food here and teaching you how to follow Dr. Wallach's food guidelines and Dr. Glidden's food guidelines. He's an industry professional, over 22 years experience and a college diploma to back it up. And we do have experienced cooks and bakers as well, working on content for the YouTube channel Notus Foods and the Instagram channel Notus Foods. It's 100% gluten-free, oil-free, all the stuff about burning fats and all of the rules that you would need to know or follow. We're here to teach it to you here, as well as give you tons of ideas for recipes, individual dishes, and meals. Of course, in the near future, we do have a cookbook coming out. Stay tuned for it. And if you'd like to talk to us directly, you can call us. Actually, you can call Judy. She's downriver Detroit. You can call from anywhere in the US, Canada, Mexico, UK, Australia, New Zealand, any other country. You want to email us or send us a DM on whatever app that you want to contact us on. Instagram is super convenient for us. And that's for any sales or product information in those countries or any distributor information.